Hi, I'm Londa. Subscribe to my channel here on YouTube to save yourself money and to get rid of any and all stress as you learn my how-tos for creative sewing. In order to sew successfully, you must thread your machine properly. A sewing machine makes stitches by locking the top thread with the bottom thread. And that hasn't changed for years and years, so we have to get everything threaded properly. Every single guide on the sewing machine is part of its tension. The first thing you're concerned with is the thread delivery. Now, thread comes wound two different ways. Here is a stacked or parallel wound spool. Do you see that the threads are just laying right on top of each other? And here is a spool where the threads are cross wound. Do you see how they kind of go back and forth? This type of spool can ride successfully either vertically or horizontally. On the other hand, this parallel wound spool should only ride vertically on a sewing machine. So that's really, really important, because if you take thread that's meant to feed off vertically, and put it horizontal, as it feeds off, number one, it can get caught in to this rough edge of the spool or that little thread notch if you don't put the proper spool cap on it. But in addition, it actually gets an extra twist to the thread. Let me prove that to you. Do you see, if I take this spool of ribbon and just let this feed off vertically, it's fine? But if I take it and I move it horizontally, now as it feeds off and goes into an area, do you see that it's going to twist?
Oh, I've been doing it wrong at my house all the time.
I did this wrong for years myself, and this is a piece of very valuable information, along with a lot of other, from Mr. Superior, Bob Purcell from Superior Threads. I owe him all the credit for showing us that. But it really, really, really is true, and I have so much more success in threading my machine with all different kinds of threads, because I know that stacked must ride vertical. So when you pick a sewing machine, you need to have a machine where you have both options, vertical as well as horizontal. So if your machine just comes this way, look and see if in the accessories there's a vertical spool pin. In lieu of not having a vertical spool pin, you could actually take a golf tee and glue it on here so that you could stick a spool of thread on it. Or you could have an additional heavy-duty spool thing that rides behind your machine. Those are very common for people who want to use the cone thread on their sewing machine. So that's the first thing to remember. I personally prefer these cross-wound spools, so I'm going to get rid of the vertical. And I like to have my thread coming from the bottom. And then of the 3 spool caps that generally come with each machine, small, medium, and large, I'm going to choose one closest size, not bigger, but closest size to the end of the spool itself. So in this case, it would be either the small one or this medium size. So I'm going to put that on. So the thread's coming off, and there's one other thing that you must remember at this point, and that is that when you thread the sewing machine, the presser foot must be up, okay? Not down, but up. Can you get the camera to see right in here? Do you see? These are the tension discs, and when the presser foot is up, the tension discs are open. When the foot is down, the tension discs are closed. Thread has to get back between the tension discs in order to get squeezed. So how could it get back there if they're closed in the first place? You must have the presser foot up when you thread a sewing machine. That's a separate video that was filmed very poorly. It's a vertical one, but it has many, many views. So you might want to look that up here at my channel. Now that I have threaded around there and up through around this take-up lever, this is just like your arm pulling the thread tight at every stitch. This is the arm of the sewing machine. It's called the take-up lever. Do you see how easily the thread pulls? If I put the presser foot down, then I should not be able to pull the thread. It's much tighter. So I know at this point that the thread is back there between the tension disc and it's being squeezed. Up, no squeeze, down, squeeze. Every single guide on the sewing machine threading path adds a little bit of drag. So frequently this little guide right above the needle eye is missed. Don't miss that one. And then it's time to thread the needle. Now here's God's gift to the sewer. This is a needle threader. The principle here is that you've got the eye to the needle, and this little gizmo is a little wire hook that's going to come through the eye of the needle from the back, and then you're going to lay the thread underneath, but let this hook catch it so that that hook can pull it back through the eye of the needle. And when you get to be over, say, 40, and the good Lord starts doing things to your eyesight that happens to the best of us, you will simply love this. So how these work is you have to have the presser foot at its highest point. These are very common on machines, even as low as $150 these days. So do you see how this little hook rotates through? Can you see that on the video? See how that rotates through? So the needle's at its highest height. I come underneath this little hook. I pull this down, but I don't just pull it down. I have to rotate it so it comes forward. And then I'm going to lay the thread underneath and give it some slack with my right hand so that that miraculous little hook can pull the thread through the eye of the needle.
Very nice.
Now this principle has gotten very sophisticated in real expensive machines like the one you've used here in the studio. Melanie,
Yes.
you know, you just put it in the right path and you press a button and it all works. Well, it's the same principle. Personally, I like this one where you're actually doing it. It's like everything, the more mechanized and automatic it is, it's easier it is for it to not work. So I love this basic system, and I'll show it to you on several other levels of sewing machines. So now the top is threaded. I have a bobbin wound, and this is what's called a front loading or vertical ride bobbin system. Machines are either vertical or they're top drop in. Top drop in is easier, I will say that hands down, but this one is a front load like this. The bobbin has been wound properly. You can see that it's even versus uneven like this one. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can use any bobbin in any sewing machine, because that is as wrong can be. There is no such thing as a universal bobbin. I have had a conversation with the good Lord, and he says in heaven, when I'm working in the angel sewing room up there someday, that all bobbins will be the same. But until then, bobbins are specific for their machine. Here at the studio, I have several different brands of sewing machines, so I know that this blue bobbin keeper is for the Pfaff machines. I know that the red bobbin keeper is for the Brother machines. But even amongst Brother, there might be two different styles of bobbins. So you have to use the right bobbin for your sewing machine. So that means you just can't go to Walmart or even a sewing store and just expect them to give you a bobbin that would work. Give me a call, let me know the model number and brand of your sewing machine, and I promise you I can get you the very perfect bobbin for your sewing machine. Now, another truism is that a vertical riding bobbin has a bobbin case into which the bobbin must be put. And this bobbin has to rotate the correct way. If I put this bobbin in so that I'm looking at it, I don't hold it this way, I hold it so I'm looking at the bobbin. Right now, which way is this rotating? This is a test, clockwise or counterclockwise? This is counterclockwise. It's turning opposite of the direction that the hands go around a clock. This is wrong. This machine will not be a happy camper. If I proceed to even go ahead and put this here in the tension and everything, it's not going to work right. You're not going to get a good stitch even if it works at all. On any front load vertical riding bobbin, it must ride clockwise. Okay, it has to turn to the right. So now I know the bobbin is in the correct way, and there's a little slot right here, and then there's a clamp. I have to hold the bobbin with my finger and pull this thread up behind this clamp. That is the squeeze on the bobbin in the same way that this upper tension was the squeeze on the top thread. Now I have to stick this in and push until I hear it pop. On this machine, I then need to hold the top thread, turn the hand wheel towards me, and always only turn a hand wheel towards you on a sewing machine. Don't turn it backwards. Holding this top thread, that needle goes down there and miraculously picks up that bobbin thread. You'll see a loop, and you just have to pull that on through. Now you're ready to sew. Vertical load bobbin has to rotate clockwise. Now let's go to a different machine where it's a top drop-in bobbin. On drop-in bobbins, they must rotate counterclockwise. And there's even a little picture showing you that right here. So vertical, clockwise, drop-in, horizontal, counterclockwise. And on this machine, all I have to do is hold my finger right here, come around like this, and just stick it up in that groove, which is a really great thing, because once I take my all-important bobbin cover and put it back on, and then thread my upper thread path, you'll see I don't need to pull it up. Since the direction that the bobbin unwinds in the machine is so important, I'm going to show you on yet one more drop-in bobbin machine. This is the Eversewn machine that I just love for beginning sewers. Again, it's a top drop-in bobbin, so right now I have it in my hand, and if I pull the thread, which way is the bobbin rotating? It's rotating clockwise. That is wrong for a drop-in bobbin. You must turn it over so that it's unwinding from the top left, so that the bobbin rotates counterclockwise. And on this machine, they even have a little picture right here. It's pretty idiot-proof. Now let me caution you about one other thing. See this little piece of plastic? And yes, it is plastic. You need to respect that. You have to be gentle as it comes around there. But do you see that the thread path is really very clearly shown to you? So it goes around there and in here, and then put that little bobbin cover back on. And on this one, we don't have to pull it up. And I want to show you one more thing that you need to always look for. Once you've started to sew on this machine, because it automatically brings that bobbin thread up, you have to see that bobbin thread going across the top. Do you see right here? Do you see how this thread is coming across the top of the bobbin? If you don't see the thread right there, or even further down here on some machines, it has not been caught within the tension portions of what holds the bobbin. So that's very important to look for. If you don't see that thread, you're not going to have squeeze on the bobbin thread. So once again, vertical riding bobbins rotate clockwise, horizontal drop-in bobbins rotate counterclockwise. That is sewing biblical truth. But I want to show you that bobbin winder one more time. As I stop and look at my spool pin, it's got black marks on it, and I can tell you that that is glue from where the labels have been put on thread spools, and all this in here, it's just, what I do with a spool like this is I take my scissors and I go down in there like that, because you want to get rid of all that label and all that goo. But inevitably, you will get some gooey stuff on your thread delivery system, and when that happens, you really need to take some Goo Gone. Lemon extract works for this as well. And you want to clean that gal off. So I'm just going to, this is part of regular machine maintenance. I want to keep my spool pins clean of sticky. I bet nobody ever told you that before. All right. And another thing is, you don't want this cap to be tight against the spool pin. You want to leave it a little bit of room. So now I'm going to thread the machine, and this is a test. Do I have my presser foot up or down?
Up.
Up. This machine is so smart, it's kind of like idiot-proof. Right here, if my presser foot is down, it will not let me get into the take-up lever. You see? It just won't let me go because a little flap came across here. So that's a wonderful feature that keeps one from threading the machine with the presser foot down. It simply will not let you. The really expensive, more sophisticated machines have the same kind of feature. There's one other thing that you can miss in threading a machine that's going to, for sure, make it not work properly, and that is missing the take-up lever. So here I am threading the sewing machine. I'm down here, I've gotten within the tension, I've got my presser foot up like I've taught you, and I just miss getting around this guy. So let's just pretend that I think I had, and I'm going to get in all the other guides. Remember, you don't want to miss any guide, especially that one up above the needle. And then I'm using the needle threader, lickety-split. I have a whole video on how that needle threader works. And now I think everything is fine, and I'm ready to sew. Put my presser foot down. Do that. It's just don't go any further. If you hear that, stop. What's happened is you don't have an arm pulling the thread tight each time. It's like trying to hand sew without pulling your hand as you create the stitch. So this machine is not going to work. It doesn't matter what you say to it. It doesn't matter who you pray to. It's not going to work. So you just have to get through the take-up lever. So let me prove it to you. If I thread the machine. Sometimes if you keep on, that can pull the whole bobbin mechanism out of place, and you have to take that all apart. That's why I started to do that. All right. Needle threaded. It's in the take-up lever. Now let's start to sew. Happy camper. So don't miss the take-up lever. So here I am. I'm going to thread the machine again. I have my needle at its highest point. Same operation. On this one, can you see that I say he's got a mouth? See this little groove right in here? So I'm going to pull it down, rotate it forwards, and I say just put the thread in his mouth. Kind of looks like this. So you're putting the thread right there in his mouth. Put it in there, give it some slack with your right hand, and gently let loose of the needle threader. And you'll see that little loop come back. And then you do have to go to all the effort of pulling the thread through. Now on this machine, I'm actually ready to sew. When it has a little thread path like this, you don't have to hold the top thread and pull the bobbin thread up. So that's a really cool feature as well. That's how you thread a sewing machine. Join me for Creative Fashion Sewing, where you'll find oodles of inspiration and detailed how-tos. For a constant stream of sewing fun, follow me and subscribe to my social media channels.